Live.
That's right. We are live. Hi, y'all. I'm Joe, your host and cannabis lifestyle guide. Jarrett Robertson, thank you so much for joining me on this Friday morning podcast. I'm excited that we're just going to talk about awesome shit today, right?
That's the plan. That's the plan. Awesome shit. I like it.
That's right. So, Jarrett is an athlete, he's a financial advisor, and he is also an author of this book. Make it a great day. How to feel awesome so that you can help others. I mean, that's what it's all about. I tell people all the time, take care of you first. If you don't take care of you first, how are you going to take care of other people? And they always say, "Joanna, that's easy for you to say. You're single. You don't have kids, you don't have a spouse, you don't have pets." And now I'm here with a married man with 2 kids, and I'm sure you have pets, and you're living this lifestyle too.
I am trying to, and that's certainly, I am absolutely. And the one thing I'll say that, Joe, about you want to live, you want to take care of yourself so you can help others. The whole concept behind that, I'm sure you would agree with it, is that sometimes it comes off, or I think some people think it's selfish. And I contemplate that and talk to a lot of people about those things. And in reality, I go back to the analogy, and it's on the back of the cover actually, about in an airplane, how they always instruct you to, when the oxygen mask drops, to put on yourself first and then help someone else. And the whole idea is that, if I, as a parent, I want to save my kid, but if I'm trying to save my child and I don't have oxygen, I won't survive.
Yeah.
The whole point of put it on yourself first. So, and that's an extreme situation, obviously, because I think I can speak as a parent that, I'd rather save my child in those situations ahead of myself. But the concept of this book is, are you taking care of yourself so that you can be the best version of you every day, so that you can help other people, whether it's at your job or your family or whatever it is you're doing. But yeah, if you're not feeling great every day or finding ways to feel great, how can you have fun in a day? How can you do great things?
Amen. And your best self is better equipped at handling everything. I always do these little things, and I call it taking care of future Joe, like setting my future self up for success. And, one of the things that I love right off the bat is the idea of setting the goal of consistency. We do so much of, goal setting, like holding ourselves to the fire on different things. And then, failing, the wheels start coming off, and people are like, "Oh, fuck it. Let's just,
Mm-hmm.
eat 12 cheeseburgers and like be done with the
Mm-hmm.
diet. I screwed
Mm-hmm.
up."
Mm-hmm.
But when you set the goal of just like trying to be consistent, like for me, it was just doing those small things every day to get where I wanted to go. And it just feels more manageable that way.
You can't you can't fail if you choose consistency, right? So, and I know a lot of the topics that are coming up with this, with the book, and a few questions that have been asked is, how do you decide on those little things? And they're boring, right? Um, tie your shoelaces, put on a pair of shoes, drink some water, laugh, things like that. They're mundane, but they're not celebrated as we get older, right? They're not celebrated as adults. You just told me your story. You're in a farmhouse. You took over this big space. You built a podcast studio. Oh, like, why isn't that like, wow, holy, good job? How'd you do that? Walk me through it. And it's not that I want to be over the top. I just think it's so important that with our littles and kids and we celebrate everything, right? My kid colors, scribbles on a piece of paper. What is that? It's a scribble on a piece of paper. It's a forest. Wow. Right. And they feel good. And there's a reason for that, Joe. Like, we all feel good if we tap into the right thing. Now, I don't want to be dramatic and over the top all the time, but I just think it's important. And it's how I've learned too. So that's why I can, why I wrote the book and why I like talking to people, is saying to Joe, good job. Good for you. Walk me through that. How did it go? What made you decide to move, and your ideas? That's pretty cool. So I think those are the things that need to be celebrated, and it just feels good to do those things, right?
It absolutely does, and, one of the things that this is a cannabis podcast, and people are like, "Okay, where are you going with this, Joe? Bring in the cannabis." But, that's one of the things that I learned early on was that cannabis really did help me in finding the good perspective, reframing situations, quieting the the judgy part of my brain, and allowing me to be more playful. And so during this whole thing, it's like cannabis has become my co-pilot, and there are all of these things that I can do on my own to affect change and to raise my vibration and feel good. But, some days you're sluggish, some days you wake up on the wrong side of the bed. And when you have a plant medicine that can help you get over that hump, or like, get the momentum going to then be able to have a great day. So for me, it is the idea of how I set my mind and the different activities that I do, but also knowing what are the things in my wellness toolkit that can help me. And, one of the things that you parse out in the book are all of our happy hormones, controlling our chemical reactions. Well, our endocannabinoid system, does a lot of these same things. So, we can learn how to strategically create dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin and the endorphins to feel good. So let's dive in and talk about that.
I would, my comment to that is, so I'm learning a lot about the cannabinoids and that stuff. What I like about where the cannabis world is going, what I've learned so far, the THC and the CBD, that the people are starting to understand, and it goes deeper. I think it goes back to consistency for me, and you just hit the nail on the head with a tool, something in your toolkit. Look at if you well, now what, eat, there's lotion, there's every smoke, what else can you do? Everything, powders, you name it, right?
Yeah, sublinguals,
If you do it, if you
food.
do that and rely on it every single day, I don't think it's good for you, right? No difference, in my opinion, than alcohol, gambling, sex, stuff like that, right? So, for me, it's a lot of supplements in the fitness world. So I have a ton of supplements I take over the years and learn from my coach. But if I don't adjust my supplements from here and there, learn more about it, figure out, as I've been taking this every day for 2 months, should I maybe take a break? So I like the idea that, and I just got into some CBD and some gummies and things like that as I learned. And I was never that person before. So this was one thing I was happy to talk about on this, saying, back in university, when I played hockey, I was the beer drinker, the let's go do the alcohol guy, and loved to party and had fun. And I never smoked weed, anything. Now for me, I'm like, it's different. It's changed. That's the idea, right? Moonshine, when it first came out, was alcohol. I'm like, good Lord. So now things have just changed. So now I appreciate the science behind it. Said, geez, you know what? I'm going to take these gummies at this time, or I'm going to, here's some supplements I could take with CBD in it. Here's a drink. And the story I tell a lot of family and stuff, I went camping with my wife and family and a bunch of kids. I said, you know what? I'm not going to drink this weekend. So what are you talking about? And it's a camping, right? You go camping, you get smashed. I'm like, no, I'm not going to drink. We went for 4 days. I think I had 5 beer in 4 days. I had all these CBD drinks. So it was a cucumber mint soda water. And I drank it. I thought, feel pretty good. Had another one. And I was just completely chillax. I had the single greatest sleeps of my life in 4 days. And my wife, I think I slept one day till 11 o'clock. And I get out of bed and they go, what do you, I go, I don't know. I feel fantastic. I don't. And the other kicker was I could get up at, you could go to bed at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And you're feeling good. I don't know if you call it intoxicated or buzz or whatever it is. And I could wake up the next morning at 6 a.m. with my kids and be perfectly fine. So that was the big one for me. There was absolutely no residual effect. Now, I haven't learned a ton about that. But that's the CBD world for me, that I'm like, geez, if I can still, be me, hang out, have a good time, and then be able to be up with my kids and be a good father and a good husband and a good, business owner and colleague, all the things, then I'm more interested in that now. Now, for everyone listening, or however many people are listening, or you and I, when I go away, my wife and I go away, we have a night out. We like to have some drinks and have some fun. So that's what we do, right? But the residual effects now are just astronomical, and they take days to wear
Yeah.
off.
This
Days.
is a true story. This is a true story.
This is a
And,
true story.
the thing that you're talking about with the CBD drinks, I do that as well with THC. So
Mhm.
having what we call a California sober lifestyle, where you can have a drink with your friends. They may be drinking alcohol. You still have that feeling of,
Mhm.
community, camaraderie, cheers, whatever.
Mhm.
But I'm taking, cannabinoids, and you're drinking alcohol. And yes, we will wake up in the morning and feel very differently from each other.
My buddy said we went fishing the next morning, and at one point, maybe the second day in, I remember it specifically said to me, he goes, "How do you feel?" And this was maybe 8 o'clock at night. I go, "Fine." He goes, "Oh, you don't look any different." I go, "Yeah." And I was feeling pretty good at that point, right?
Well, and
Eh,
CBD does not give you psychoactive
Yeah,
effects. It's just
yeah,
that lightness of being. So yeah,
yeah.
he wouldn't notice anything different.
And the big thing for me, because that was my first weekend, I told my wife, I go, I'm just going to be a science project. I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff in and see what happens slowly. Um, so yeah, I'm relatively new to it, and the CBD thing, I did feel, again, just that pretty chillax, which
Mhm.
was good. I'm not a big psychoactive person, and for me, I just didn't want to get into the slurring like you do when you happen to be hammered with your friends.
Oh, what I hate is
I'm
the
like,
person that repeats the same story, like, on the 3rd time. I'm like, "You need to go to bed. I'm done hearing this story out of your mouth."
oh, so it was, and then yeah, the next morning I think we were fishing, and they're like, "How you feeling?" I go, "Completely normal." I go,
Yeah,
"You?" They're like, "We're battling." I'm like, "Of course you are."
yeah.
So it's been a shift, right? And that's like anything in life, right? You shift, you learn. I love to evolve. I love to grow. And things just change. So I'm not stuck in my ways. I'm not stuck in never going to smoke weed or do that. I'm like, it's changed. The science has changed, right?
Well, and the science of the plant hasn't changed.
Right, right.
It's just that people are actually getting to hear the truth now
Mhm.
because, propaganda has been selling everybody a load of crap for a really long time.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's go back to our happy hormones and the things that we can do every day to kind of create our own little cocktail of, feel good hormones. Like dopamine, most of the time we associate that with, addiction. And so, what are some of the things that release dopamine?
Well, the number one thing today that everyone uses every single day, and it's an extension of their being now, is their cell phone, right?
No, I
So
meant good things.
every, yeah, but that's the number one thing that people don't get. And what I've done, one of the things I've done with my cell phone, and I mean, I get in shit for it from colleagues and people. There's not one notification on my phone. There's not one bing, buzz, pop, for anyone who knows ICQ. And none of that. And, I choose when I go to look at my phone, I choose because every time that goes off, you get this quick hit of dopamine. And I've challenged people. I think I wrote it in the book, and I challenged friends. I'm like, look, put it down in a meeting next time you're talking to someone. If I'm sitting with you right now and I turn this on, put it down. And if it goes off, I dare you to try to not go like, right, you won't, you're just drawn to it, right? And you're so used to it for how many years with your phone going off. So that's the one thing that you get that hit.
And let
um
me say something, because I just recently was on a hike with my housemate, and her Apple Watch was
oh,
dead,
oh,
and
okay.
she was wrecked because her Apple Watch was not going to get our hike in, And she was like almost to a point where she was going to be hitting some big milestone in her thing. And I was like,
Mhm,
but you hit the milestone.
mhm,
You did it. And she's just like, it's not the same. Like, it was like she needed that dopamine hit.
mhm.
And I recently read that Gen Z kids put more value in their online life than they do in their real life.
Well, and I think to add to that, where I see, because my nieces and nephews, of course, right? Because the likes, the I'm not even that social. The likes, the retweets, the TikTokers. Unfortunately, I got to
You
figure
sound
this out.
old right now.
I know I sound old. But I've chosen not to, and I have some people who manage
Yeah.
my social media because I'm like, look, I need some help with this. I want to be involved with it, but I've also chosen that if I don't get the thousands of likes, I have friends or family or a community of people who still give me that support. Um, the people in that generation don't know how to praise other people. They only know how to like. They only know how to do that. So if their friend shows up and they got a haircut or they're dressed differently, they don't know how to say, "Wow, Joe, you look good today," because that's weird.
Yeah, they'll
That's
text you.
awkward. That's awkward. They'll literally, you've seen people, right, walk away and text back. I know people who text each other in their home, right? And that's, so we're taking away the communication part. And that's something I've worked hard on. I mean, I'm a social person, so I like being around people. I've also put myself in situations to have challenging conversations. More gets done. And some of those conversations have led to like amazing outcomes, even when they started out tough. Because that's what, as humans, we want to be together. So I think that generation, my nieces and nephews are a big part of it. They don't know how to say, "Wow, I really like you." I'll tell you an awesome story. I got to say this. My son is 6. He's in the car. He's starting to talk about girls and girlfriends. He won't ever hear this podcast, so I can't embarrass him. So he's got a girlfriend, or they're in grade 1. "Daddy, I got to tell you something." "What's that?" Aspen. Can I use names? Aspen. She's 6. "Asked me to be her girlfriend." I said, "Oh," and I don't react to things like, "Wow." I go, "Cool, man." I go, "So what'd you say?" And he goes on and on. So the story keeps going a couple days later. But yesterday, we're in the car, and he goes, "Dad, I want to tell you something." I said, "Yeah." um, Aspen came up to me, told me that Mackenzie wants me to be her boyfriend. I said, "Wow." I go, "What'd you do?" And I was so impressed. He said to Aspen, 6 years old, I go, "What'd you do?" He goes, "I told Aspen I wanted her to be my girlfriend." I go, "Good for you, man." I said, how'd you make that? How'd that make you feel? He goes, "What'd he say?" He goes, "Awkward or scared?" I go, "Good. Awesome. And what'd she say?" And then it kind of ended. But the fact that he had, the gumption to say, "I want you to be my girlfriend," to her face. That's fantastic, right? And I think there's a generation that's missed that, completely missed that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and
and
it,
I
it's
and that comes back to the parents though. Kids are modeling what they're seeing. So if a child doesn't know how to communicate or to have a hard conversation, we kind of have to look in the mirror and be like, am I good at having hard conversations? Am I a good communicator? And again, that comes down to being really conscious about who we are, how we're showing up, making sure we're taking care of ourselves so that we then can turn around and be a beautiful model for our littles.
Mhm. And to add to that, I know a big challenge with a lot of people, and it's a challenge for me as well. But I just something I've worked on and continue to work on. Um, we touched on the beginning here, to take care of yourself so that you can help others, right? I don't want to just have a conversation if my kid's around saying, "There's my uh I need to be a good model right now. My kid's listening, so have a chat with my wife or my parents or my friend or someone else, so my kid sees it." I want to do that for myself, right? So that I become good at that. And that's what I would encourage people to do is look at yourself first. And if there is a challenging conversation, whether it's at a store or a retail situation, there's so many things in a day, or so many conversations, interactions, where sometimes people say, I don't want to do that. It's awkward. Or what's going to be the outcome. If you have the audacity, the gumption to have that conversation, it's better for you, right? And you'll grow as a person, and then you can be a model for your kid. So that's how I kind of see that.
Right on. Okay, so going back to our happy hormones. So for us to feel good, there are things that we can do during the day. And so I want to talk about the things that we can do, or the things that when we do them, we feel good. And, it's not necessarily because this is, rocket science, but it's like, make the correlation. Understand that if, you need to feel better, what are these things that I can do? Is it listening to music? Is it going for a walk? Is it just soaking up some sunshine for 10 or 15 minutes? Is it snuggling with my pets? Like,
Mhm.
all of these things release something very important for us to, raise our
Mhm.
vibration. And so, that's one of the things that you kind of outlined in the book, was taking each of these hormones and saying, like, hey, you want to, the love hormone, oxytocin, let's start with that one.
I mean, the thing with all the hormones that I've learned and I continue to learn, and the one thing I want to promote is that you won't feel it. And that's probably the biggest challenge for people is when you, I shouldn't say you won't feel it.
I was
You know,
going to say, I disagree. I
yeah, yeah.
disagree.
So if I go and just hold my wife's hand, the first day I met her, the first day you go on that date and you hold hands, you hug, you feel something way more powerful than what I might today, right? If I hold her
Certainly.
hand, it feels good, not like it did before. And that's just,
Yeah, it
you've
was
gotten used to that.
exciting before.
Of
Now it's
course,
just comfortable and comforting.
but still oxytocin, right? There's
Hmm.
still oxytocin being released, and it also builds a little bit. Dopamine when you, what's a good example? Run a marathon, right? And you have the mile markers, right? The reason for those mile markers, because if you didn't have them, chances are you wouldn't finish, never knowing where you are. The mile markers, oh, mile one, oh, mile two, right? Oh, mile three. So
And for someone like me who's never going to run a marathon, laughter, sex,
yeah.
these are good ones.
And those are huge, 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 right? So sex is a big one. That's a dopamine dump. And there's some things on that you want to be careful of too, which I love. But that dump of dopamine is like taking a huge amount of, a huge thing of gambling, alcohol, something that's where
It's
you
a
get a
macro
ton.
dose,
Yeah,
not a micro dose.
right. So you want little doses, tasks, right? Checking off your task list, and then adding sex in there, and then laughter and all those things. But so I would say you do feel them, just not as you would when you do physical exercise, right? Like people talk, how do I feel good? Go work out. You're going to feel it.
Mhm,
Eat a healthy meal. Don't eat a healthy meal. If you don't eat a healthy meal, sure, you get some chemical reaction. You feel like shit, right?
mhm.
So the little micro doses I think are important. And these are as I said in the book, I'm like, it's not exciting, but the reasons why behind this stuff, Joe. When I say laugh, someone says, oh, Jared, okay, laugh. I'm like, well, try it, right? Throw on a YouTube video and just laugh for like 10 minutes while you're driving. That's it. Just listen to something and laugh and then just go about your day. That's all. I don't want you to like write down and journal, but just do that 10 minutes a day. Do it while you're sitting on the toilet for all I care, right? Like you've got 5 minutes in a day and choose to laugh. And here are the reasons why. No, I'm not just telling you to laugh. Drink water is another one, where it seems pretty boring. But if you look at and do some research, which I've done about the why, I'm like, Jesus, I've been told my whole life to drink water. We all have been. This makes total sense. Then there's a mind to muscle connection as well. Of when I drink water, I'm like, oh, I can actually feel that stuff happening. This is better than crushing a beer or drinking a bottle of wine or a pop, right? Drinking water is good. And here are the reasons, plethora of reasons. The laughing is a big one that I love.
For me, meditation is
Oh,
a huge one. My morning meditation is my most important meeting of the day. I spend 25 minutes. And I will say that when I'm getting towards, that last 5 minutes of my meditation, and then after the timer has gone off, I absolutely feel an explosion of endorphins. And, you just feel amazing.
mhm.
So much so that it's almost like I'm sad it's over. I don't want my meditation to be over just yet because it feels so good.
Mhm. Let me ask you, what meditation do you do? Because I think it's important for listeners. And I have that with my listeners and followers too. When I wrote about in the book, and I started the whole down the meditation down that road, meditation sounded very hokey to me, right? And I think for a lot of people, that would be the first step is all meditation. Like, whoa, wait a second. There are so many different ways
Oh, yeah.
of what meditation is. So, like, what are some things you do, Joe? That what is your meditation?
Well, for me, since I've been doing it for over 10 years, I've developed into meditating for 25 minutes. I didn't start there.
Hmm.
I started with a few minutes and I'm a busybody and I have a busy mind. And
Hmm.
so, just trying to sit still and clear my head, would be how I started it, starting with a little notepad. If, I kept circling back on a thought,
Hmm.
I would just write it down, like get it out of my head, put it on
Yeah.
paper. But at this point, now it is, I have binaural beats that I listen to. Stephen Halpern, I love this man. I've had him on the podcast before talking
Oh,
about sound
nice.
healing. So I'll choose one of Stephen Halpern's playlists based on what's going on with me that day. Um, and, I just do a couple of minutes of, the changing nostril breathing, do some of that. Sometimes it's just, breathing into my heart, but
Hmm.
spending a couple of minutes, like, just calming myself down with breathing
Hmm.
and then, about 20 minutes of just being still
Hmm.
and breathing and listening to the music, focusing on the edges of the music. And if something comes into my head, I have mantras that, I will say, I am loving awareness. Right
Hmm.
now I'm doing this course and one that we're learning is I am moving toward an enduring inner stability where nothing disturbs my inner peace.
Hmm.
And, just having something that I'm focusing on. If I'm in a really bad place, it could be I am safe.
Hmm.
I am safe.
Hmm.
But then once I get back on track, it's then trying to clear and just listen to the edges of the music.
Hmm.
Um and it really is such a gift to unburden yourself with all of the bazillion thoughts. And
Bazillion.
yeah, it's
Bazillion.
true. And cannabis is such a big part of that because for
Hmm.
me, I can microdose, just take a couple of
Hmm.
puffs off of whatever I have, and it helps me to get to that place a little bit quicker. And, there is you talk about amygdala hijacking in your book, and
Hmm.
there's a high density of CB1 receptors in our amygdala. And so, the anxiety piece, if you microdose, you can soothe that anxiety. Now, if you overconsume, then you can amplify that anxiety for the very same reason. So,
Hmm.
those are the little things that I do around meditation that really soothe me and set my day up for success.
Hmm. And I love hearing that. And thank you. That is literally something I now learned because I'm very interested in the amygdala. I've done some research, but the CBD1 receptors in there, it makes a ton of sense right now. And I want to add to that slash question. So if you overdose, you hear of that sometimes of people having high anxiety when they get, I'll say, too high.
Mhm.
Is that
Yes.
what you're suggesting? So that the
Yes.
amygdala now is like, oh my gosh, and it's obviously the emotional response center. So it's just now it's going crazy because you're high.
Mhm. You
Is
just,
that
and just over-consuming
yeah?
can, um, affect your systems. Because if you wanted to think of it visually, think of your, the receptors are locks and keys with, the CB1 receptor and the THC cannabinoid, they fit together. But
Hmm.
when you're trying to explain it to someone else, I like to talk about it like they're buckets. And so, if you pour too much THC in that bucket, you're going to tip it over and it's going to be
Mhm.
spilling out everywhere. And
Yeah.
so it doesn't help you. You can't get past that high. That's where a lot of people, when they become more addicted, it's because they can't get high enough, but that's because their buckets are so full, it's just overflowing.
Right.
It can't
Right.
get fuller.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes total
Um,
sense. And to go back to the meditation idea, and thanks for sharing that, because that's the part that I learned so little. The music thing's been huge for me. For me, that's how it started, because I never wanted the mindfulness thing, slowing your mind down. It didn't work for me. I'm like, I don't know how to slow my mind down, because people said, be present. I'm like, I don't know how. If I sit still, my mind's gone. Right. And then, so the problem with that, and and why the book is, it was too big too fast. So the meditation thing for me was classical music. Out of nowhere, I just threw on some classical music or however it played, and I was listening to it after I'd come home from the gym. So I'm on a high from the gym, and supplements and pre-workout and things I take for the gym, maxed out, feel fantastic, get in the car and be, I don't know, 10 minutes of classical music, not really knowing why, but it felt amazing. And I'm telling the God's honest truth. There was times I'd go home and I'm smiling. There's times I'd go home with a tear in my eye, because it just something I'd be thinking of, like my dog or a past something. And I'd be like, oh, wow, it's really touching me. And it was so cool to be mindfulness and where I was. And then it led to the next thing and the next thing. I have a client, friend, coach now. We're actually writing a second book, but she's an NLP specialist. We've done some work together. I lie in bed and listen to a lot of things she does. I have a lot of other people I listen to. I'm going to look up the person you just mentioned there. So I
nice.
like
And
that. Yeah.
another thing too, for people who are busy and moving a lot, the thing of a moving meditation, going on a hike, but not speaking, just immersing yourself in nature and listening to your shoes crunching on the trail and smell the smells and hear the birds and look for the squirrels, and just immersing yourself in nature like that. It is a form of moving meditation.
Mhm.
And so, you don't have to sit there in lotus and be as still as possible. If that doesn't work for you, get out and move, but shh, be quiet. Don't put anything in your
You just
ears.
tell
Just
me.
be quiet.
There's a part of your brain, Joe, and I just learned this and I love it. I'm happy to pass it along, called the DMN, the default mode network. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And what the default mode network does is, whenever you are, I call it daydreaming, or, just letting your mind scatterbrain, it'll do one of three things. It'll think of the future of, oh my God, I have a meeting next week, or I have a podcast in 2 days. What am I going to do? So future hasn't even happened yet. And I still have 2-3 days ahead of that, or months. It'll think of things in the past. What did they think? How did I do? 2 days from now, I might be like, does Joe like me still? What happened at that podcast? I'm like, it's over with, right? So what am I doing thinking about it? It's done. Or it'll turn and look at you. How do I look today? What do people think of me? All that stuff, right? So I learned that, and I thought, geez, that sounds just about right. Whenever you're sitting around kind of, what are you thinking about? Oh, next week, yesterday, all this stuff. When you walk in nature or you see green space, it actually helps to lower your cortisol and allows you to be present in the moment. Very cool thing I learned. I thought, so now I will go take a walk and in the soccer field and look at green. And it actually, if I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I'm right here for sure. I'm thinking about other things, absolutely, but I'm actually right here. So that was something cool I learned that I'm happy to pass along. But your default mode network, by walking in nature and being part of nature, will allow you to be present. So that's something you can practice and build on. And then maybe it leads to the next
Which is
meditation thing.
Yes, which is excellent stress management. One of the things you talk about in the book is that the half-life of cortisol is 18 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And, there are so many times when someone has had a huge argument with a coworker or a spouse or a family member. And, when you're like, well, what did you say? I don't know. I couldn't think straight. Like and why
That's a
didn't you
fact.
say that?
Yeah, that's a
No, why
fact. You
didn't you
couldn't.
say this? Like I couldn't
Uh-huh.
think. And it's like, yes, your brain has been taken over. And when cortisol is like rushed through your system, you can't think straight. And so by just hitting pause, taking what I take a 15-minute power nap. That's one of the things that I like to do to
Big power
like
napper. I'm a big fan.
yes, the power nap, or just get outside
Uh-huh.
and get fresh air in your lungs, and that will help you to be able to think and respond in those situations more clearly, where we don't have to go back later and be like, "Oh, so I'm really sorry."
My my wife my wife will say, "How do you do it? How do you nap?" I'm like, "Watch. Just here, come up and watch." I'm like, "It's really easy and I'm good at it." But she can't. I'm like, "It's something you got to probably practice." But I don't know why I can. But I'm really good at it. And I'm
The
actually
power
having
nap
these.
was taught to us as children because we grew up on a ranch. Dad,
Mm.
we were the ranch hands, so we'd come home at lunch, and my dad, after he ate, he would just take, like, a 10-minute nap, and so you either have to sit quietly and watch him nap, or you just laid it down too for 10
Oh.
minutes.
Because if you didn't sit quietly back then, there were repercussions.
That's right. So
Different now.
I've been power napping like a champion since I was
Yeah.
a teenager.
It's the best. It's the best. And there's some things I've caught on to and listened to too. These power naps that I do um,
Binaural
through Calm,
oh,
the app
calm.
Calm. They're 27 minutes, and they sleep story you down, and birds wake you up. And I am every time like 27 minutes gonna go by so fast, right? Scatterbrain. You and I are busy. I'm lights out. I wake up to birds going, Jesus, and I feel fantastic, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of power napping. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And so, being able to manage our hormone balance is so important. And so it is in these moments thinking, and it is, it's silly, simple things like, oh my gosh, I just need to walk outside for a couple of minutes, or I need to watch a funny video and laugh. And, or choosing the right music for where you are. And, those little things, they seem crazy that that's helping you manage your hormones, but it does. And so does having quality sleep.
Hmm.
And that was something that I learned when I got my genetics done and found out that I had the genes for dementia and Alzheimer's that my grandparents had, which was why I was looking at it anyway. And I wanted to know, okay, is cannabis bad for me for who I am in my life? Do
What
I
if
need
it was Joe? I feel like you'd be
that was a real serious
like, you're
question I
like,
had to ask
careful how
myself.
you answer this for me, doc. Do
Yeah, I know. I
there's
was like
only one response.
I'm like, "I can't unlearn this information." So,
So what's your net?
gratefully,
Yeah.
my endocannabinoid system, when I had my genetics panel run, cannabis is my friend, yay. But I also learned how effing important it was that I get good sleep.
Mm.
And I turned from being someone who would stay up late and still get up early and try to get shit done to now, like, I was asleep at 9 o'clock last night. I got almost 9 hours of sleep last
Mhm.
night.
Mhm.
And it is such a game changer for so many areas of our life. And I know so many people that sleep is an afterthought for them.
The So 100%. The part of the book where I read about that and I tie it back to sports, and I do more research on that today and listen to things. But I came across Dr. Matt Walker, who's unbelievable, and I learned a lot of stuff around the circadian rhythm, and then tied it back to my own life and the sports analogy about the amount of time people invest in other things or and not sleep. So how much people will go and spend on a car or a custom suit or a trip or whatever it is. And just laying it out there. And that's the point of the book is just read this. It's not wrong. You can disagree with me, which is perfectly fine. But if you sleep 8 hours on average is, the 6 to 8 hour rule. If you sleep 8 hours, That's a third of your day. That's 33% of your life. You're sleeping. How much time and effort do you put into sleep? And I go as deep as like picking out your bed. Well, I spend $300 on a mattress. Spend 30 grand on a mattress. Sleep on a cloud. Like bring in doctors. Like it's 30 grand for your whole entire life, right? Or do you do that? The blankets, the pillows, the room temperature, the humidity, the darkness, all the stuff, so that you're an absolute champion at sleeping. Because to your point, it's a domino effect. And the sports analogies, the amount of work these athletes do, so they're perfect before their big game, right? So they can, the Michael Jordans of the world, the Kobe Bryants, the Wayne Gretzky's, the Sidney Crosby's, all the sports, hockey, basketball, but more hockey for me. So people get it. That the amount of things athletes will do so that they are perfect includes sleep, right? And those things will end. Your business that you're running as a CEO or the job you're in, all of that comes to an end one day, right? Those are finite things that just that they end. Simon Sinek, someone I watch and follow
I
and
like
love.
him.
Yeah, he talks about the infinite and finite games. I'm like, geez, and he opened my mind. I'm like, it's so true, because I want to win every day. That's my thing, win. And then he's like, what do you want to win at? I didn't get to talk to him personally, but I would love to. Win at marriage. I'm like, oh, I guess you don't win at marriage, but I'm the best husband. Oh, I think sometimes my wife thinks I am. Other times, probably not. So, and then I don't win at business, and I love my job, my career. I'm like, this is going to come to an end. I've watched it around me, right? I've watched people leave or get fired or quit or get packaged. Like it's over. Sleep doesn't end. That's your entire life, right? So that's why I do so much more research with sleeping and try to tell people like, how good are you sleeping? Because you could wake up the next morning and there goes a whole day, right? Grouchiness, mood, your hormones, all the stuff, working out, eating properly, your decisions you make, if it is business, and all of a sudden you've lost a whole day because you slept like shit the night before. Like that's true stuff.
Yeah. And that's
So
another place where cannabis can be such a valuable tool is, say you've analyzed your sleep space. You're like, okay, I have a great bed, cozy sheets, best blanket ever. I don't have any, my phone's on airplane mode. There's no other electronics on. Everything's dark and you still sleep like shit. Then consider cannabis,
mhm,
CBN, CBD, THC, all of these different cannabinoids. There's so many different products and different ways to use cannabis for sleep. And so, the other side of the coin is somebody who has a shitty sleeping environment, but they just take a ton of cannabis to go to sleep every night. Like that's not good
right,
because
right,
you can wake up with a THC hangover. You
yeah,
can wake up feeling a little groggy. So,
mhm,
for me, it's all about creating a consistent environment, but then also, just everything in moderation, especially, our cannabis, in my opinion. Like I think microdosing, if you're using it for a wellness lifestyle,
mhm,
being able to microdose throughout the day or in different scenarios, you aren't ever going to have that problem where it's overriding other systems or, flooding, flooding you to
mhm,
where you are overly anxious or you have no motivation.
mhm.
So
I
it's
would,
a puzzle for sure.
yeah. And I would say to that, what I've learned and where the road I'm going down with that, and appreciate the information you're giving me around that too. Everyone knows, again, this isn't rocket science and it's not wrong. A slice of pizza or two, not healthy for you. We know that, right? And I'm talking, greasy, good, pizza. I think people could
I'm like, I
probably
lived
argue.
in Italy for a while and it was
Right.
food group
It was
for me.
it was amazing, right? And people could say, I can make the healthiest pizza. I get it. I'm talking, your pizza. Um, People know that, drinking a couple bottles of beer, a glass of wine, it's not healthy for you. It's okay. But the point of the cannabis, the THC, what I'm starting to learn is it can become an actual health benefit. It's becoming a supplement, right? So I like where you're going and the things that you're saying around, these things as part of a wellness lifestyle, along with healthy eating and sleeping and laughing. I'm like, yeah, this is totally part of it. Absolutely. Because some of the stuff you're doing. And I've got friends and colleagues all the time who are asking, what are some things I can change? I say, what do you eat in a day? I'm not telling you to change your whole diet, but don't eat a large pizza before you go to bed. You know that. You don't need me. You know that. You go to
Yeah,
bed, you're full,
although,
crampy, you feel like shit.
I will say though, I love, uh, the Huberman Lab podcast, Dr. Andrew Huberman. And one of the things, when we were talking earlier about the circadian rhythm
Mm,
the things that we can do to kind of get ourselves there, I was so proud to hear him say that having a bunch of carbs before you go to bed
mhm,
helps you sleep well.
mhm,
So you can eat the carbs.
mhm.
I will eat pasta for dinner unapologetically now, but I don't lose my mind. I don't eat
Mhm,
too
mhm,
much of it.
mhm.
It's a little bit, not all of it.
And this is no different than, and I'm certainly not the expert because I've got coaches and some nutritionists that help me along that same thing, right? You eat a whole plate of pasta, you're going to overflow, you're going to feel like crap. Absolutely. There's some different carbohydrates, high glycemic, low glycemic, mixed with fats and certain proteins can help you sleep, of course, right? So this is, again, part of the book, and I appreciate is that I want people to literally take some information and go, and do some more research. So how this got started too is I got introduced to Simon Sinek's first video. They'll start with why. Out of the blue, a colleague of mine, have you ever watched this? Said no. It was 18 minutes. Went and watched it. I went, click, click, click. Another video. Click, click, click. Now, rabbit hole, right? For 10 years now, roughly. And that's the point of this book. Is I want this to be a continuation of lots of research out there, but there is an idea in the book for everyone. Is the whole book going to resonate with every single person? No, but a whole bunch of people are going to appreciate the laughing thing, go, right? And you see some of the chemicals or the chemical reaction, to drink water, or speak to a friend, pet a dog. Something's going to resonate in there for everyone. And then what the goal is for them to do a bit more research, right? And they can start to learn for themselves and help, and so they can turn around and help others. So yeah, I think with the past and the food thing it's a good thing to learn for sure.
Well, and it's all about creating your own roadmap. We're all precious snowflakes. Like, we're nobody's special, but we're all uniquely us. And we have to find our own groove. And, the older I get, the more information I've taken in, you can just be a lot more clear of like, this works for me. I'll leave that alone. That stuff doesn't work for me.
Hmm.
But, one of the biggest things for me that, and you also touch on this in the book, is controlling your inputs. And, you don't watch the news, I don't fucking watch the news.
Why not? Why not? The news.
No.
How are you supposed to know anything, Joe?
Yeah.
How are you supposed to find anything out?
Mhm. How am I supposed to get brainwashed if I won't watch the news? And, so not turning on the television first thing or not logging onto social media as soon as you wake up. Like, create some sacred space for yourself to figure out how to take care of yourself. The first 30 minutes of my morning, I wake up, I have a little prayer that I say, I have some mantras, and, it's all dark in my room. I'm in my bed. It's not like I'm having to go do something,
Hmm.
but it's just like having those few moments of, recognizing, feeling my body and how, does something hurt? Did I sleep weird anywhere?
Hmm.
And, just getting really clear on how I'm fucking feeling
Being
before I
present.
even get out of bed.
Hmm.
And, those are the sorts of things that you can do that in 2 minutes, 3
Hmm.
minutes. And it's an excuse to say, I don't have time for great ideas, Joanna. I don't have time.
Hmm.
And that's an excuse.
One of the things I learned, the meditation idea and trying to be present, because you can do this in your mind and you don't need time because you can just do it. So, for example, right now we could be doing it while we still chat. But my left foot's on the floor, my right foot's on the floor, my hands are folded on my stomach. I have headphones on my head. coffee. There's a coffee thing right here. And then my mind can't go somewhere else, right? I'm talking to Joanne. There's a microphone here. So when people are, so an easy one's walking for anyone. Be like, how do I be present? I want you to, when you walk, go left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. And you'll be right here. And it actually builds a muscle to help you meditate and be present. So to your point, you've done well with mindfulness. How's my body feeling? So you're actually going, how's my hips feeling? How are my knees feeling? Let me roll over. Oh, my shoulder feels bad. You're here. You're present. So when people say I don't have time, like you do, here's the tool. It's boring. I'm not trying to be exciting. You want to be exciting, climb a mountain, go ahead. What I'm saying is get to the bottom of the mountain, put on your shoe. That's boring. Good job. And that's not celebrating. Well done. You showed up to the bottom of the mountain. Friggin' holy shit, right? Put on the next shoe. Okay, take 4 steps forward, or 1, 2, 3. Are you tired? Hey, take a break. Right? And keep going there. So so that was one thing I learned too, was just talking in my head or out loud, but depending on where you are, out loud might be a little weird. So talking in your head about the things you're doing right there. I'm buttering toast. I'm making breakfast. My kids are sitting in the chair. My wife's on the couch. I'm having a coffee. You're right here. And it builds a muscle in your brain to help you to start to be more present. And that's the part you won't feel. And I talk about that, but it's working.
And once you're present, you can start working on emotional management. And, I'm present. How do I feel in this moment? Is that different than how I want to feel in this moment? And just like being able to um, be aware of those things so that you don't have that moment where you just all of a sudden, lash out or, have a tantrum because you've been ignoring how you're feeling. And all of a sudden, it's like the emotion is just like, I'm coming out whether you like it or not.
So you touched on it. So I'm going to go back to the amygdala. I would say, well, it's not the only thing to learn, but there it is, right? There's something to learn. The amygdala is the emotional response. And you talked about controlling the input. So anything we've ever learned in our life has been from external sources as a young kid. And I talk about early on in when I was growing up, I'm 40 now. So it was, parents, school, friends, right? Not work for me when you're young. And everything you learn is from external source, told, right? My parents tell me all this stuff. I believe them. Grandparents, all this stuff. Now it's, the news too, for parents when we're growing up. Now it's social media. There's a huge one, right? So when you take something in, you'll agree with me, you can't unsee it or unhear it. As you just said, I can't unlearn it. So I take it in and it goes to the amygdala. So there's something, I learned and people got to learn to say, no matter what, it's a default. It goes to the amygdala and then it assigns an emotion. From there, you can decide, what do I do with this? And that takes practice. And the whole cortisol thing kicks in from there, because I was learning that when I'm in a heated discussion or I'm frustrated, whether it's with my spouse or my kids or colleagues, whatever, I can feel it now, right? I can feel it getting heated. I'm going, okay, I'm going to start to shut down here. Not because I want to. There's cortisol flooding in. I'm going to get heated.
You're like, my ears are getting hot.
Yeah, they just piss me off.
Heart rate is
I'm not going to be able to literally have this communication. So take a walk or whatever. And I'm telling you, one of the toughest things is if you're in I don't always say heated, but if you're in a conversation where it's difficult, heated, something, one of the most challenging things is to say, Joanna, I'm not in a good spot right now. Let's take 15 minutes. The other person's going to go, what? What are you talking about? We're arguing right now. This isn't over, right? But it's because you can't think properly. And an example I tell people, like, how many times, you mentioned it, 2 or 3 days later, you go, oh, I should have said this. You know what? What I really meant was this. And the challenge now, you can think, because your cortisol levels are down, your brain's now functioning properly. You couldn't have come up with that in that moment, because cortisol is there to protect your brain, right? It breaks you down to black and white thinking, and it's your way or the highway. So if you can take that break, that's a challenging thing to do, but knowing those things, and that's the part of the book that I want to get out to people, is learn about the amygdala, learn about cortisol, because the next time you're in that situation, you might go, okay, I always say to myself, like, I'm dumb right now. I can't do this. right?
Yeah.
Kids just take you over the top sometimes. My kids, I look at them like, I've looked at my wife before. I go, I don't know how to parent this right now. I don't know. I'm going to research it because I don't know what to do, because he's coming back at me, my kid. And I'm like, I'm going I'm gonna murder my kid. I'm gonna, what? I don't know the response, but I know what's happening in my brain. So I'm like, I got to
Yeah.
walk
I got to
away.
take a knee.
I
Yeah.
got to take a knee. I don't know what to do. And that's true story. That's true for anyone in those situations, right?
And I think it feels really brave in the moment to do that because, silence can sometimes feel so uncomfortable and you feel the pressure of needing to respond. But to be able to just stop and be like, okay, this is not going well, and be able to breathe through that and take what you need so that you can show up and be present, because chances are the other person isn't present either. They're firing the way you are. We're feeling each other's energy. Our
Mm-hmm.
energy extends out beyond our bodies. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're having some sort of a situation with someone, you're in each other's energy. And so even taking the time to just step away, walk away, give each other 20 feet to even get out of each other's energy and to be able to clear your own. It can, like I said, it's brave to do that
Mm-hmm.
because we are one of those people. It's like, we started this, we're finishing it now.
And that's human behavior, right? Like you're gonna, and that's the cortisol kicking in. From what I've learned too, is it's, if you and I are arguing, then now I want to win, right? And obviously some people will overpower, and you'll see that the boss employee thing. But it's not that the boss is winning; it's the employees maybe giving up because you're my boss, right? Because if the boss argues with the next, so you see a lot of that in business, politics, right? All that stuff. I
Mhm.
get it, but in relationships, you might see that. Maybe not in friendships. So I think it depends on the situation. I have an example of a colleague of mine, a good friend. He is way better at me at the silence game. And when you mentioned sometimes silence can be uncomfortable, I would just go out on a limb saying it is uncomfortable, for me too. And I've practiced it, the whole count to 3 before you say something. And I encourage people the next time, because the people will speak within 3 seconds. I can't beat my colleague. I can't. I sit there and I'm like, 1, 2, 3. It's like 6. I'm like, come on, man. And then I'm like, so anyways, what do you think? Please speak. And he just sits there stone faced, and he's thinking, he's in his space too, but I can't beat him. I can't beat him at the science game. He's just better at it. Right.
And that is, I mean, that's an art form. My sister back in the day was doing these silent retreats, helping host them.
I've heard.
And I was just like, me keeping my mouth shut for like 4 days, it's torture. But now
That
I'm
is
like,
torture, I
I
think.
would, that's something that is pushing me outside of my comfort zone. So probably something I should try at some point.
Should we
Um,
go together? Want to meet at a retreat and just say hi
just
and
look
that's
at
it?
each other and wave. You know what? And that actually, this is a good segue into, what are some of the things that we can do to push ourselves, just a little bit to help develop these skills and to be more mindful and more present in deciding how our day's going to go instead of, being a victim of it.
Well, for me, thank you for that question, because the point of this book, and when I've told anyone why I wrote it, and how the ideas came to be, was I'm busy. And it feels like we have a lot of the same tendencies, but I see the top of the mountain. I've got goals. As a matter of fact, the analogy I use with my business partner is that I'm on the 18th green putting for the championship. He's in the locker room prior to the first tee off on day one, and he is just methodical. And I'm like, I'm winning this tournament, right? Like, it's already done in my head. He's taking every shot. He's doing all the things. So it's been really therapeutic for me, stepping back to go, what are those little things? And realizing that these little boring, monotonous things are helping. And that's the point of the book I want to get out to people, is you don't need to make these massive changes. That recognize that things you're doing in a day are fantastic and they need to be celebrated. You may not get, when you're taking 10 minutes to laugh or meditate, I get someone's not coming around saying, hey, good job. Call me, right? Write me, tell me you're doing these things. And I'd be happy to say, awesome, good for you. And again, I'm not out to be over dramatic, say, oh my God, you meditated today. That's ridiculous. But hey, awesome. How did that go? What are some things you felt? What are some things you did? It's the littlest things that do help us go forward. And what I've recognized, Joe, is just, they're just not celebrated. We don't appreciate them. Right. But I want people to understand I'm 1,000 miles an hour and I always have been. So these are the things that I've done to help me thinking, all right, writing that first page of the book, I was like, I'm already on stage in front of 10,000 people coming up after Tony Robbins. How's that going to work? Right. Like I'm there. And that'll probably never happen. But I'm like, but I wrote a book and I'm like, but I wrote a page. Now I'm talking to Joe. How would I have ever met Joe? Like, this is really cool to me. And I love doing this stuff. So I can go back and say, yeah, I wrote a page of a book and that's how it started. Right. So
Well, and I think one of the things that you do is that you haven't said is, that visualization that on page 1, you are already visualizing being
me and
finished.
Tony,
Yeah,
me and Tony.
being the next Tony Robbins. So, that is a huge piece of it, is seeing yourself winning, seeing yourself happy and on the other side of it.
Mhm.
Versus, visualizing that you're going to get buried in all these pages and
Mhm.
never finish a book. And so, a lot of people aren't born as a half glass full kind of a person. I've been called Pollyanna my whole life. And so I get it. Everybody's not like me,
Mhm.
but you can train yourself to look at things that way, to visualize the good shit.
Mhm. So if I want to be transparent with everything that I do, as transparent as I can without getting into every detail. I've got shitty things in my life, right? I got a lot of shitty stories and a lot of shitty things. And I tell people, I'm like, do you want to have a shitty day? All right, come on over here. Let's start talking. Ask me about this, and we'll go into some detail. I might cry. I might rip your head off. I might go silent. I got a lot of shitty things. I don't bury them because that's also important with health, right? You don't bury all this stuff. Handle them, deal with them. Therapists are big. I'm a big fan of going to see a therapist for so many different reasons. And there's a stigma around that I would love to, say, what do you mean the stigma around therapists? Here's what they do. What are you talking about? They're fabulous. So there's a lot of shitty things that I have to deal with in a day, but I choose to do these things. And, one of the sayings and in my book that I love is life's not too short, but life's extremely valuable. And the reason why I've grasped onto that, Joe, is because when people say the old saying of life's too short, I'm like, okay, life's too short. I'm like 85 years, 90 years, 70 years. I don't care. I'm like, Joe, if I told you, listen, after this call, I just want you to go for a walk. You're like, cool. But I want you to walk for 2 days straight. Yeah. You're going to laugh and go, what are you talking about 2 days? I'm like, what is that crazy? Is that a long time? Like, that's forever. Who walks for 2 days straight? I'm like, oh, so 2 days is forever, but 85 years is life's too short. What are you talking about? Like, how does that match up? Life's too valuable for sure. Because things might happen, right? So I get when tragedies happen or sicknesses, and that's, I've got lots of stories, young family members, good friends, like things happen, right? And it's sad and it's hard and you go through it. But those are the things I want to pass along. Like, here's some tools. And don't get me wrong, that, the laughing, the drinking water, the exercising, if something tragic happened, I can't just say, gonna laugh and drink some water. No. But what are some other tools I have? Because this one's going to be a little tougher to climb, right? This one's going to be tougher to get through. But on the day-to-day, shitty day at work, a crappy sleep, I get it. You ate like shit. Something where your day shifts. Are you also implementing in your day just a couple of things to increase those chemicals, right? Like, give yourself some dopamine, hug a dog, get a massage, eat the proper food, exercise, go out in green space. These things will change how you feel, and that'll change your mood as you deal with the other stuff. Because if you just compound all the bad things, we see it every day, right?
And one thing, because I am all about living my life as an experiment, and I encourage people all the time to use a dosage tracker with their medicine. But I would also encourage you to, use a journal as a little dosage tracker for your day and your mood. And, just if you're new to trying to control and make things happen versus being a victim to your life, journaling is such a nice thing to do, whether or not that's just a few bullet points of like highlights of my day, a couple of the things that I struggled with, how I handled it. Called my mom today. Those sorts of things. If you just do that for a few minutes, I mean, you can fit 3 days on one page. I'm not saying you have to write a bunch, but when you go back and look, you can see those small incremental changes that you are making in your own life and your own personality. I mean, I am not the same person that I was 25 years ago as a 20-year-old, like,
Mhm.
moving out into the world. I was an angry, aggressive little thing.
With no tools, right? You're explaining no tools. And the one thing I want to add to that, I guess it's a question as well. So I add to this, but one of the things I've learned from the I'll say the most successful people that I'm assuming a lot of people you've spoke with too on the podcast things is they write. I'm like, it seems like everyone's writing, right? All these people who are, quote unquote, happy and mindful, they write. So I started that a few years ago too. Kills me to do it. It's so slow. And so if anyone's listening to this, I'm like, I can't like, I'm like, here's my 100 miles an hour. But again, shocking the, how therapeutic it is. And that's the why behind it. When someone's write it down, like writing it down, like this motion's not doing it. It's slowing your brain down just to go, I did this today. And I'm not thinking about tomorrow, yesterday myself. I'm right here writing that. That's the why behind it. And so it was very slow, but it's so therapeutic. And that's the why people will tell you to journal and write things down and get it out of your head. The other
And while
thing,
you're writing, make sure you're writing down, like, what are the things that I'm awesome at? What are the things that I love about myself? What are the things that I want to change about myself? What are the things that I'm not proud of about
Mhm.
myself? Because when we do know our why, that's the first question I ask people as their, cannabis lifestyle guide. Why do you want to consume cannabis? What are you hoping that it's going to do for you? So we have to do that for ourselves in our own everyday life. Like, where am I killing it and where do I need to get better? And putting that stuff on paper gives you some sort of goal to work from, that little consistency piece where I'm working on my temper, I'm
Mhm.
working on my
Mhm.
patience, I'm
Mhm.
working on receiving, whatever these
Mhm.
things are.
And it's slowly but surely, right? And that goes back to the first 10 minutes we talked about consistency. I was saying, you can't fail with consistency. And one of the things I learned is one of the first parts of the book when it started to come into fruition was that psychoanalysts say 92% of people fail on their New Year's resolutions. Like, whoa, that's interesting. I'm like, but completely believable. January 1st hits, I want to lose 100 pounds. Holy shit. I want to quit smoking. I'm like, you've been smoking for 25 years. What are you talking about? I want to lose a pound. Perfect. Good job. Right. I want to go to the gym once a week. I want to walk. I want to one less cigarette. And then your goal is consistency. And then you don't fail. You're part of the 8% who are crushing it. 8% of a population is incredible, right? If you're 8% of something, holy, like I'm unique. So I want to tell people is it's not the goal of running a marathon. I'm like, run 100 meters. I'll be at the end line and I'll give you a high five. Not going to throw a party for you. I'll give you a high five. Awesome job. Tomorrow, come do it again. And then when you're good and ready, run 200 meters. And if it takes you 10 years to run a marathon, you didn't fail and you ran a marathon. I don't care if you're 40, 50, 100. You ran a marathon. If your goal is to run a marathon, you ran it. If it's to run a marathon in world record timing, yeah, you probably need to be a little younger and in good shape and all the things. But I know people who are, well, they're all over the world, but I personally know someone who's 68 now, I think, or something like that, runs marathons. I'm not running a marathon ever. I could barely run 2 kilometers, right? So I think that's amazing. Don't care how fast he runs it. It's not a point. You run a marathon. So those are the consistency pieces that I think people need to grasp onto. And again, it goes back to just being, it's got to be celebrated. Get a network of people. Again, write me, call me something. Jarrett, I did this. I would love to be in your corner to say, well done. Here's the next thing. Try this. Give me a challenge. I'll try to do it.
So this is airing in December. We're at the end of another strange year. And so, yeah, I like having this conversation as people are thinking about the new year. New year, is it going to be the same you? Is it going to be a little bit better version of you? Like, we all get to decide what that is. So, are you someone that makes New Year's resolutions, or based on your lifestyle, you're like, I don't need that?
Zero. I don't think I ever have. And I make goals every day, and then I break them, and then I make new ones, and I break them, and then eventually I go back. I'm like, oh, I set that goal like 4 years ago, and I'm here, right? In your subconscious mind, a thing called your RAS. So you'll eventually get there. If it's important to you, you'll get there. Adding to the consistency part and the goal setting and the New Year's resolutions. A conversation I had with a colleague was I wanted to lose 10 pounds or whatever, 15 pounds, right? I'm like, okay, so you want to lose 15 pounds in a year. Got it. January to December. December 31st comes around. You've lost 10 pounds. Your goal was 15. Did you fail? They said, yeah. I'm like, okay. But then 3 months later, you kept going and you lost 15 pounds. So did you just get the timeline wrong? Because it was an arbitrary number you made up, right? 12 months, 15 pounds. Perfect. Write it down. So you didn't, but you got to 15 pounds. Fantastic. That's amazing. So next time you adjust your goals to make it, 15 months, right? Or 12 months, 15 months, 15 pounds. So it was an arbitrary number you made up. I want to make this much money. I want to own this business. I want to write a book in 10 weeks, 10 months. But you wrote the book, right? You ran the marathon, you climbed the mountain. So the goal is important to set, but you got to adjust it along the way, right? And again, the small things, but they need to be celebrated. And I would say by far one of the biggest challenges for anyone I've talked to, friends of mine, is that, again, being celebrated, having someone in your corner, building that network, saying, good job. Wow. Right. So.
All right. Well, if people want you in their corner, Jarrett, how do they find you?
I would say the easiest way is the website, makeitagreatday.ca. It's got all my social media. We talked about me being old. I don't have a lot of social media. I have a few pieces of social media. Apparently I don't have them all. But everything's in there to get a hold of me. And yeah, I would love to hear from people with their goals, and I'm happy to be in people's corner to help celebrate the little things that they're doing.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you joining me on this Friday for I love this shit. This is the stuff that I'm like, this is what it's all about. Like, how can I enjoy my experience in this life? It's not about having the perfect job or the perfect outfits or shoes or all the shit. It's about feeling good. And so thanks for nerding out with me on this today.
Enjoy the rest of your day. You've got a whole day in sunny California.
Yes, well, it's a foggy, drizzly rain kind of a day, and that's a perfect day for me to be indoors writing and creating. So I am not complaining.
I got snow this morning.
I'm not ready for that.
Right.
Yeah, you're in Toronto, right?
Yeah, just east of Toronto, yeah, but okay. GTA, yeah.
Yeah,
so
I like that.
It's gonna get cold soon.
I do like that part of the world, but there's a certain constitution to live through that kind of cold weather. I don't know that I have.
Yeah, it's good. I like the seasons, so.
All right. Well, let me look over here in the comments. Somebody is saying that you are their hero. He's excited to read your new book.
Weedy head alien. I like it.
Yeah.
Hero. Wow. Thank you. Hero.
Feels good to be somebody's hero.
It does, just like that. Hey, I'm a hero.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for hanging out, and hopefully I'm your cannabis hero. And if not, I'll keep trying, I got goals. I'll be consistent. I'll see y'all next week. Thanks for hanging out.